he became a client for life. And he did finally buy something for 35 million bucks. So the fact that I impacted his kids because I clued into, he's like, oh, my daughter's upset that I didn't make her ballet recital. So his daughter likes ballet. He's in the shit house. It means something to him. That's why he's really frustrated. How do I solve that problem for him? I solved that problem for him by making him look like the world's best dad.
Nobody's born incredible. People who do incredible things simply took the right steps. This is our journey. This is the hunt for incredible. All right, welcome back to another episode of The Hunt for Incredible, where we tease out the mindset and actions that people applied to do incredible things. On this episode, we have a very exciting guest that I'm super excited to dive into the conversation of. So my man, Jarrod Randolph, has raised $300 million plus. He's closed $2 billion in real estate. He's built 2 8-figure companies, and he's been featured on Forbes 30 Under 30. So his track record is absolutely incredible. And I mean, the big question is just which of those categories do we actually do deep dives in? Because I know we're not going to have enough time. So we'll definitely have to schedule something else. Jarrod, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Pleasure, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So right out the gate, let's just dive right in. In terms of raising $300 million, what do you think is like the most fundamental element that enabled you to do those things?
Trust. So it was years of building relationships, being an influencer in my marketplace of real estate in New York City, and just having a trust factor within my network, because it's tough to get those big checks out of investors. And you're number one, you're serving their needs. And that's how you always have to look at it. So it's not what you can do as a company, it's what you can do for them as investors. But beyond that, to get those 5, 10, $25 million checks, you have to have a trust factor. The only way you build that is by tapping into people in your network to either get in front of the right people or be that stamp of approval when you're going out to raise that capital to go, yeah, this is a guy you can trust. You should be investing with him.
What does it look like for the people who write bigger checks? Like, what does it look like to build trust with them versus people who write smaller checks? Like, are they looking for something slightly different that you can add value to, or is it pretty universal across the board?
Time, repetition, and I'd say access. So the time and repetition is just how long you've been in front of them, or at least a resource within your Rolodex who's been in front of them long enough to vouch for you. You want somebody who's going to give you that buy-in. And then when they're looking at investment opportunities, they're going to be looking for things that might have a unique access point, or again, it's going to be you solving a problem for them. That unique access point could be cash flow immediately. It could be they're in and out of that investment in a certain period of time and you're able to provide that. Or it could be they're looking for longer term strategic investments. It's always playing to what exactly they're looking for. And again, servicing that need.
Cool. So share a bit more about your story. Like, how did you come up? Because I know you have humble beginnings, which we can spend some time on, but I want to communicate to people just exactly like what that journey can look like in terms of going from, not having these relationships and not coming from a bunch of money and stuff like that, all the way to ping-ponging up to having conversations with family offices.
Absolutely. So as you said, come from humble beginnings. My family was broke as a joke growing up. One thing that I've actually learned throughout my journey, and this is really important for the audience, is you'll find a lot of people say I was poor growing up. You as a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 12-year-old were never poor. Your family or your parents might have been broke, but that is not your cross to bear. And that's one thing that's really important about the mindset, because anything that comes after I am is something that the universe, God, whatever you believe in, hears, and that's what they're going to give to you. So I was poor, or I come from this. You don't know. You are your own individual and you can create your own pathway forward. So it's really that mindset, which is going to be key for you to be able to get to the success that you have. And for me, I was always a great salesperson. So I put myself in the position to land great sales jobs, and it started in real estate and it grew from there.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, I recently have been exploring that. I mean, it's essentially like what story do we tell ourselves about ourselves that other people pick up on? So it's not even just like what story do I project to other people, because oftentimes if we're projecting a BS story, like people who can read the room can see through that BS. Like I think people have intuition, so you need to be authentic to yourself. But then the second part of that authenticity is, what do I truly believe about myself, and what story am I telling myself and writing for myself? Perfect example is, so I've recently started, well, not recently, I guess over the last year, I'll journal and I'll write out I am statements that I want to be true.
Beautiful.
But I'll take it a step further. And anytime I write something out that I don't believe to be true, I will underneath it list out the self-limiting beliefs and ask myself, like, why don't I believe that to be true? And one of them was like, it's for starting a community. And I thought like, oh, I can't maintain skilled relationships for prolonged periods of time. Therefore, I would have a hard time running a community. And when I wrote that out, I asked myself, like, why don't I believe I could run a community? Like, I love public speaking. I love podcasts. So having skilled relationships is totally fine with me. And I have a ton of incredible relationships that I've had since I was a child, so I can maintain relationships. So why wouldn't I be able to maintain skilled relationships for a prolonged period of time? And once I wrote it out, it felt like a brick wall that was holding me back, that once I touched it, it fell over like a sheet of paper. And have recently kicked off a community, and it's been ripping on fire. Like, people are stoked to join, and the relationships have been amazing. And I would have never gotten there had I not rewritten my story and redefined how I look at myself.
You know what's really important about that, and a lot of people, congratulations that you're doing that. A lot of people don't realize how simple it is. You have to ask yourself, is this true, or is this a story that I'm telling myself? And that's the exercise that you just went through. And once you can, you have to be honest with yourself. And a lot of people spend time making excuses, lying, painting stories that aren't real. And then they're attaching those stories to an emotion. And once you attach an emotion to anything, which is a feeling, emotion, energy, and motion, you're going to manifest that. So if you don't believe that you're a good connector of people, you are not going to be a good connector of people. And, one thing that I heard recently and I thought was awesome was, God doesn't want your needs, but you can bring him your seeds. And why that was so powerful is because when you come from a place of need or desperation or lack or an I can't, the only thing the universe or God can do is replicate that. So if you plant a seed today, right now, that's an oak tree seed, an acorn, I guess it would be. It grows into an oak tree, a big oak tree in 30 years. If you plant it today, if you keep it in your pocket for 5 years and you don't plant it for 5 years from now, you put it in the ground and plant it, it'll still grow into an oak tree. So you're either going to plant it today or you're going to wait 5 years to plant it. So you have to make that decision to say, this is who I am, and commit to being that person. And basically take anything that's happening outside of your purview right now, any and everything around you, and say, blinders on, I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the man, the woman, the person that I am meant to be right here, right now. That is the only way in which you can move the needle.
Yeah. And it's so easy to be negatively impacted by something that happened in childhood, for example, that is the thing you stare at and focus on, as opposed to planting that seed and focusing on who you want to become.
I'll share this from a place of love, and I will be very honest that it came from a place of anger for a very long time, because I haven't spoken to my parents for over 20 years and was very angry with them. And recently, meaning within the last year, I've forgiven them. I have love for them. We're not going to hang out and go watch a movie, but I've released so much, and it's incredible how much my life has grown and expanded since I literally at 41 years old have finally let that go. And what I've known instinctually, and it's not something that we're afforded as human beings, is the idea of we owe our parents nothing. When you bring a child into the world, it's a selfish act. It is not selfless. You are required to raise them in a happy and a healthy home. Not a new car at 16, not new clothes every school season, but a happy and healthy home. So if you grow up in a household where your father comes home and you have 3 brothers and sisters and there's 4 of you, and he says, I work 3 jobs to keep food on the table and a house over your head. How is that your problem at 3, 5, 7, and 9 years old? You didn't decide to have kids and not have enough income to support those kids. Your parents did. So unfortunately, we live in a society where the model is so broken that parents, because they're not educated about what it means to be a parent, create situations that they then burden their children. However, we are so enlightened today, and there are more opportunities out there where we can say, Mom, Dad, I love you for everything that you did for me. And I forgive you for being that person, because I know you didn't know any better and you didn't mean to. And you most likely would have been a very different person if you did know better. You set that aside and then you move on and you release that, because you don't owe your parents, whether your mother's manic depressive, your father's bipolar, somebody's an alcoholic, somebody's an abuser. You can go, hey, man, that's not my problem. I'm an adult. I'm going to live my life so I have a happy, healthy home and strong relationships, and you can still love them from a distance. So you have to learn to create those barriers, but also always knowing deep down intrinsically, you don't owe them anything because they decided to bring you into this world.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite expressions when it comes to anger is that anger and frustration towards others is like drinking poison and wanting it to impact them. Or it's like, what are you holding on to? Like, you can release yourself. I tell that to my wife all the time. It's hilarious. She's like the sweetest angel in the world, but when she gets behind the wheel of a car, she turns into a monster. And it's like, I've heard her say things that have only been said when she's in the driving seat of a car. And I always say, like, the person who cut you off already forgot about you. So, like, just like let it roll. It's like you're the only one who's feeling this frustration right now. You got to let it fly. It's much easier said than done, though.
It's a good exercise to go through, is to actually start being present with yourself. So pay attention to what you're saying and what you're doing, and step back and go, did that make me feel good? Did that really fill me up? You're getting angry about something, you're gossiping about something, you're damning someone because of something. Does that really feel good? Do you really want to sit in that energy? I mean, some people, maybe that's exactly what they want to do, but I'd say 99.9% of people, they don't want to live that way because it does hold them back. And the other side of that is saying, maybe you had a bad day. There's a story that, and I can't remember who tells this story. It's one of the big talking heads out there. He talks about being on a train, and I'm thinking back, in fact, it was actually Benjamin Hardy, and his book, either The Gap and the Gain or Who Not How. I'm looking at it on my bookshelf right now, where he was on the train in New York City, and this guy's sitting there, and his little kids are running around. They're jumping on the seats. They're two kids that are probably like 10 and 8 years old, and they're bothering everybody, knocking people's newspapers out of their hands, picking up their bags. And then everybody's looking at this guy like, what are you doing? And not saying anything to your kids. And somebody spoke up to him and says, hey, control your kids. And he like snapped out of it as he had his head down, was really sullen, and said, I'm really sorry. Their mother just passed away an hour ago, and I don't know what to do. And it was one of those moments where you go, shit, you don't know what's going on in somebody else's life. And most people are not conducting themselves and coming from a place of malice. And when you can realize that, it's whether you're having a conversation with a friend and they go off on you, or someone in business and they're just being an a-hole. Sometimes you have to realize, and most of the time, it doesn't have anything to do with you. It has to do with them. So find that compassion, that moment, even if you don't get to ask them, to ask yourself, like, what else could be going on in their world that's creating this? And then move on. Don't take on that energy. It's not yours to take on.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful. So I want to circle back around to the relationship models that you've built that have enabled you to raise capital and meet people and work your way up in terms of the caliber of people that you're able to build those relationships with. What is your process for adding value and eventually being able to make those asks that people can apply to their own lives?
It's something I've been doing for 10 plus years. It's called buying favor. And what it is, it's an operating system that I live by, where I can turn my relationships into capital, into revenue, into leverage. And it is, in essence, just having deeper connectivity with the people who are already existing in your realm. Most people think you've got to go out and do funnels and ads and bring in new clients, when a lot of times the people that you need to expand and grow your business are right under your nose. People just don't realize that.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Like, let's say you have, a sea of people in relationships, and I also want to tie in something else that I've seen you say in multiple places, which is identifying the 20% of the people that do yield the 80% return, right? So what is your process for taking the relationships you already have, identifying that 20%, and then adding value?
Pull up the contacts on your phone and look at them as unlimited revenue, access, leverage, alignment. And what I mean by that is, basically your favor network. So buying favor, the idea of buying favor, buying from the standpoint of an exchange by way of Webster's dictionary definition. And favor is actually an act of kindness. So it's an exchange of kindness. That's really what it's all about. But there are 5 key categories. You've got your friends, your associates, your vendors, your organizations, and your relatives. And within those, there's probably 5 key people that can help you move the needle with any and everything that you are currently working on right now. And that's what people don't realize. What we neglect to do, and especially as entrepreneurs and business owners, is we get laser tunnel focus on building our companies, our success, etc. And the 5 categories and the 5 people in each category don't actually know what we're doing. They don't know what we need. They don't know the problem that we're trying to solve that they could actually help us with. If it's in terms of growing your business, getting more access to other referrals, sometimes your vendor list, the people who you have on payroll, they don't work for you directly, but they're third-party providers where you're paying an invoice on a monthly basis. They are the best people to reach out and say, hey, I need 3 more of you. I need 5 more of you. I'm trying to close more business. Who in your network should I be talking to that you've experienced? You've been providing a great service for me. Who else could I be reaching out to that I could be working with? Same thing with your friends and your relatives. Do they actually know what you're doing? Do they know one of your biggest pain points? You could have an uncle that was an entrepreneur or has a friend that's an entrepreneur that if he knew the problem that you are having right now, he could at least say, go talk to my buddy Sam. And Sam I know he's been through the same thing. We've talked about it over beers many times, and he got to the other side. He's going to be able to give you some insight on what you should be doing with your business right now to accelerate to the next level. Do your friends know that you're trying to raise capital, whether it's $500,000 or $2 million? If they don't, you need to let them know because everybody has this network. They have a favor economy already built in where they can pick up the phone and call a resource that could change your business overnight. You're just not strategically tapping into it.
So the more value you invest in somebody, the bigger the ask can be, the greater the favor. What are some strategies you found that are the most effective for adding value to people?
One of the things that you have to do is when we talk about the favor 5 in each one of those categories, start adding value to those people. One of the biggest ways in which you could do it is make a connection from a business standpoint. So it could be you have a buddy who's looking for capital and you know somebody who's an investor and he's got a solid investment or she's got a solid investment. Connect them without any expectation or reciprocation expected. When you do that, you start to build that and unlock that hidden currency, which is in your network for you in the future. So you can call on that person for a favor. Anytime that you can help somebody personally, there's a story which I love to tell was first time I did one of my biggest real estate deals in New York City. There was a gentleman who came in kind of really disconnected and we were looking at properties and we've been searching for months, haven't found anything. And he was in a rush to get to JFK. There was a ton of traffic that day, but he needed to see this property because it was going to go. And he mentioned to me, he was like really frustrated. And by that point in time, I was just like over the dude. And I was like, are you okay? Like you're really off today. He's like, yeah, my daughter's upset with me that I missed her recital again. So he flew out, ended up not buying that property. And I emailed him a couple months later. I said, any chance you could get your daughter to come into New York City next time you travel in? Because I knew he was going to be in around spring break time. And he goes, yeah. So what I did is I set him up to go to the ballet, after the ballet to go backstage and meet one of my dear friends who was a prima ballerina at ABT and get a pair of signed tap shoes. Made this little girl's life. Apparently she still talks about it today, and this was probably 15 years ago. The fact that I made his daughter smile and I made him look like the world's most amazing father, he became a client for life. And he did finally buy something for 35 million bucks. So the fact that I impacted his kids because I clued into, he's like, oh, my daughter's upset that I didn't make her ballet recital. So his daughter likes ballet. He's in the shit house. It means something to him. That's why he's really frustrated. How do I solve that problem for him? I solved that problem for him by making him look like the world's best dad. And that became invaluable. I made millions of dollars off of that relationship.
Hey, quick pause here. If you're getting value from these conversations, it would mean the world to me if you took 10 seconds right now to leave a 5-star review. Each review directly helps us reach more people who can benefit from these incredible conversations. And if you're looking to buy a hotel or invest in one of our deals, or even if you just want to say, hey, you can send us an email at hello@thehuntforincredible.com. We'd love to hear from you. Now back to the show. That's incredible. That's amazing out of the box thinking. And it actually reminds me of, so we met at Emergin, an event hosted by Jesse Ray, which is absolutely incredible. One of the best events that I've ever been to. And at that event, there's someone who was raising a tremendous amount of capital. And I don't remember how the conversation started, but you effectively, he was saying like, oh yeah, I need to raise capital. I'm trying to find a way to build meaningful relationships so people write bigger checks. And you came up with the idea of this individual sponsoring like a father-child event. And your whole avenue was, if you can create value for not only them, but their children and make them look like the superheroes to the most important people in their lives, then they will write bigger checks. Because it's so easy to think about the numbers of, I need the returns of this deal to be bigger so that people write bigger checks because they're more excited about the annual rate of return or whatever it is, right? Cash flow, whatever, like constantly thinking of the numbers. But really it's, we all want to feel incredible and special, and people and their kids or other relationships that really mean a lot to them, making them look like a hero to those individuals is such an out of the box hack, and also brings tremendous value to you because you know that you're genuinely impacting someone's life. Even if they never do business with you, the fact that you were able to give them a gift that was far more valuable to them than just a higher rate of return.
Yes. Again, you pull at the heartstrings. You can pull at the purse strings. That gets you pretty far. And some people are only concerned about money and that's all you need to do. But funnily enough, I had a situation recently where a gentleman's like, well, I'm concerned about the bottom line. I'm concerned about the money. But he kept saying, says, for me, I want to make sure that if the world goes sideways, my son has everything he needs in his trust. So it's not about the money, buddy.
Right.
Like I got you clocked. Like right now, I understand exactly who you are. It's actually the love for your child, your son. You want to make sure that he is financially stable. So it has nothing to do. Money is the catalyst, but it doesn't have anything to do with money. You're working your butt off because you want to make sure he's taken care of. So when you can listen and hear through all of the madness, this particular gentleman, he loves his three boys and wants to be involved in their lives. His thing is he wants to be a great dad, and he is a great dad. If he could actually help a lot of men in particular, well, men specifically, because in business, a lot of times they neglect their families. They don't have, especially super successful men, they might not have the best relationships with their kids. Even if it is a 1 week out of the year, you help them at a daddy and me summer camp connect with each other. And then you guys are masterminding and talking about your business. You do some fun activities, teach your kids how to invest and create their own little businesses, maybe do a mini Shark Tank with them. You now are invaluable. Their wives are extremely happy because they're engaged with their kids. Their kids are like, when are we doing this again? This is the coolest thing in the world. They get to hang out with their dads and they get to smile and go, oh, wait, I was just in my element. I was still doing business. My kids were involved in it, and just things explode. Funnily enough, the gentleman you're talking about, and we will not mention his name, but he was just with me for the last 3 days, Monday through Wednesday in New York City, where I was introducing him to some private equity funds for investment in what he's doing, looking for $65 million in investment. And because of my network and background, I was able to pick up the phone and connect the dots for him with people in my network who I know like his investment structures. That is a way in which I'm buying favor and I'm building that relationship equity with big people in the market. So when I go to do something, when I'm trying to move a needle, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, XYZ, ABC, I need your help with doing this. They go, what do you need, Jarrod? You need a check, you need access, whatever. I'm here to help you. So you have to always be adding value to other people in different ways, whether that is the purse strings, whether it's the heartstrings. That's going to help you accelerate. And by the way, I'm not reinventing the wheel. This is nothing new. The biggest companies from UBS to Goldman Sachs to JP Morgan, it's what they do with their elite clientele. It's what they teach their executives to do. It's whether it's a Mark Zuckerberg or it is a Warren Buffett or a Jeff Bezos. All of these guys spend their time building relationship. Eric Schmidt has his brilliant mind dinners. Steve Jobs did his walk and talks. And I want to say it's Jeff Bezos does his thinking retreats. They invite a handful of people with them and they mastermind together and they do business together. whether they're adding value through strategy on developing your business or adding value through strategy on mindset, they're growing together and creating that symbiosis where they're all aligned. And that's why they continue to grow financially, mentally, emotionally, and become extremely successful.
Yeah. Something else that I want to tease out that you hit on, but I really want to hit the nail on the head with it, is money is a vehicle. And that vehicle is to deliver something, but it's never, ever about the money. Whether it's about ego because people want to grow in power, or whether it's about security for their families, like you mentioned, the gentleman who wants to take care of his son. Money is always a vehicle. So once you get below the surface, you can become much more creative with your offering because maybe you're limited on the financial aspect, right? Like you can only find deals that have so much return. You can't just snap your fingers and get infinite returns. There's a limit there. But if you look beneath the surface, you can get creative by delivering on the need that is beneath the money in a much more targeted way.
And we kind of alluded to this before we popped on. I had a weekly call with my operating consultant, brilliant woman, Betsy Tong, used to be at IBM, Lenovo. She was like chief of staff for, some really big power players out there in operational businesses. And she reminded me today Jarrod, she asked me questions. Are you solving their greatest need? Are you solving their biggest problem? And a couple things that I'm working on right now. Like I have coaches. I believe in coaches. Michael Jordan has had a coach. Everybody's had a coach. If you don't have a coach, you are never going to get to the level of success that you aspire to, especially and that coach needs to be 5 steps ahead of you, not one. They need to be 5 steps ahead of you if you want to accelerate and go from a 7-figure to an 8-figure to a 9-figure business operator. She said, always have at the back of your mind when you're having a conversation, am I solving a problem for you? So then it's not about the money. And very rarely is it about the money, even when you think it's about the money. Well, I've got somebody, they need to raise $1 million because they need to fix this problem. So if they're trying to rectify a problem that they created, that's a financial problem that they have now. That was from the actions that they took in the past. So they're actually not trying to correct the financial aspect. They're trying to rectify the mistakes they made in the past to get there. So you think it's about the money and it's not. It's like, shit, I messed up. Now I've got to go back and fix how I messed up. And that might have been you didn't have the knowledge that you needed to have to operate the business. So the business went to crap and you lost your investors' money, and you've got to get your investors their money back. It's not really about the money. It's that you lacked the knowledge. So right now you're going out and trying to figure out how to fix that issue. It might have a dollar figure attached, but it has to be, you're trying to rectify that you didn't have the skill set to run that business in the first place. So when you can detach from the money, you can start to have a very clear view on who do I have to become? What resources do I have in my network to help me become that person? And then how do I give value and extrapolate value at the same time so we can leverage each other to get to that next place that we need to get to in our lives?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a model that's similar that I call the mentor flywheel, which is similar to what you're talking about, so I'm a firm believer, you win when successful people want you to win. Like when you become close to someone who's done the thing that you're trying to do and they genuinely want you to win, that's when you've won, really. And that becomes a massive accelerant. And my model for this is it's a 3-step process. Number 1 is active listening, where you ask questions of them to deeply understand what it is they're looking for, what their challenges are. I'm not at all a fan of people saying like, oh, how can I add value to you? I'm willing to work for you for free. Because now you're making them put on their HR hat. They have a million things that you can help them with. Don't give them a job to do and try to learn about you to see where you fit in their organization. Actively listen, understand their challenges, and then assess how you can deliver value for free and pour value into them, which leads to step 2, which is add value and go fill the gaps and solve the problems without them even asking you and doing it for free. And then step 3, which is getting feedback from them on that value, right? And then it continues where you're continuing to actively listen, add value, get feedback from them, and actively listen further. And that is the fastest way to build rapport, build meaningful relationships, and align incentives to do something that I've heard you speak about, which is alignment over attention. So share a bit about what you mean when you say that.
So the steps that you just went through are really important because when you talk about getting in alignment with someone, it is back to what we were just discussing, it's being in alignment with what they need. When you find a mentor that is 5, 10 steps ahead of you, a lot of times they don't need anything from you, but what they desire is to give back. What they desire is to mentor. What they desire is to share what they've learned along the way with someone that they see as an aspirational entrepreneur who's trying to level up their game and hit it hard. So their giving back is actually having someone that they see in their purview that has the ability to be successful. So the way in which you do it is exactly what you just outlined. Especially if you're in the beginning of your career, you can start to build those relationships with those people by being present, by being engaged, by being nurturing with them. And when I say nurturing, it is being attentive to what their needs are and be able to serve their needs. It could be expected or unexpected activations as well. So just being more present in your relationships creates that alignment, and then staying in their orbit, and not every single day, every single week. It could be once a month. It could be once a quarter where you're, hey, I'm thinking about you. I saw this article. Hey, I just had a conversation with a buddy and I think you guys should talk. There's a lot of synergies in your businesses. That's when you get alignment. Alignment is being able to help them see that you're paying attention, that you're trying to add value. That's an alignment. It doesn't mean that you're both in the same industry. It doesn't mean that you're both, trying to raise the same amount of capital. It could be literally, it's just you're completely aware of what's going on in their world, and you have resources or people that you think can help them solve that, advance, improve, and you continually connect the dots. That creates alignment.
I love that. Let's spend some time diving into creating alignment and adding value through relationships, because that's something else that you touch on a lot. You even mentioned a friend of ours that you hung out with in New York who you're adding value by introducing him to people. How do you think about that in terms of adding value by building relationships to do so?
So people talk about being self-made, and you'll hear a lot of the gurus out there and the talking heads, and I'm self-made. No, you're not. Not one of you are self-made. It's cute and adorable that you think you are. Because number one, a man and a woman created you. So you start there. Whether or not you have a relationship with them, you like them, you don't like them, been there, done that. You are not self-made. Because if you had someone who discouraged you and the discouragement pushed you so hard to excel, go back and thank them. You owe them something, because that's what you needed to hear at that moment of your life to get you to where you are today. If you sell a product or service, you are not self-made. If it weren't for your clients, you're not selling something or leasing something, renting it, you don't get to do it again. So we all need people. And the more we realize that we need people, and not people who are in a CRM as a number, but people who become real activators in our network, that's how we start to get to a point of scale. So when you hit that wall and go, oh my God, I don't know how to solve this. I'm having this problem. Why am I thinking this way? There's probably 3 key people that you need to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, this is the challenge that I'm having. And most of the time it is mindset over operations or things that you need to do to earn money. It's changing your mindset, that shift that other entrepreneur who might only be a step ahead of you, but they were able to overcome. They help you get your crap together so then you can overcome it. It is people. So getting in alignment with the key people in your network, that is tantamount to success.
And then through that alignment with them, you create alignment between the people in your network. And that's where like the turbocharged value is.
Exactly. You create your own mastermind. I mean, I am and Jesse Ray and Immersion completely excluded, because I walked away with some insane relationships because he truly knows how to curate a room. And we had been talking months before. My friend Tessa hooked me and Jesse up, and he was talking about what he was working on. And I gave him some strategy on just kind of how to elevate what he does, because I do the same thing. I have a networking series I've had for a decade here in New York City. And frankly, it's a very elite, well sought after networking group that we only allow certain people in. The difference is nobody pays to be around my dinner table. You're hand selected, but everybody's an executive or a CEO of a company or major family office who sits around the table. We have very distinct criteria. But creating that mastermind, do it on your own. You don't need to spend $25, $30, $50,000 to join a mastermind, when a lot of times you have people who pass the mirror test. And I'm sure you all know what the mirror tests are. They're alive and their check clears because the founder is earning money just by selling mastermind memberships. They're not a super successful business person. They've been in the trenches, but they weren't good enough to make it. Now they're selling a service where they're supposed to be connecting people, and they really aren't connecting people at a super high level. Be careful. And by the way, not discounting masterminds, but I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on crappy masterminds. I've met one or two good people out of each one. But what Jesse did, I mean, I walked away with like probably 10 or like a third of the room, and there were only like 30 of us who like, they're my peeps.
Yeah.
So be very selective, or dude, create your own group of people from that, what I call your favor five. Create your own network of thinkers. You have to engineer the room. You have to architect the room. When you start to do that, you see big things come out of it, because then you become the core person of influence within the orbit of everyone else. So they're like, Gideon's my guy. Pick up the phone and call him. That is one of the biggest compliments you could ever get. We all have the ability to be that guy, that girl for the people who are in our networks.
So what exactly do you do when you say architect the room? Like, what are you looking for to make sure that that group in that community and event are high value? Because I agree with you, like 95 to 98% of communities are not value add in many ways. What do you do to be that top 1 to 2% that is actually meaningful and impactful?
So I'll give you a story. Back in 2008, the great financial crisis was great. And at that point in time, I was just graduating from NYU. It took me 5 years to get through school because I worked full time. I had to work my way through school. And I was very blessed in terms of, I had a great program where I was super able to be flexible with my schedule, to be able to work, my 9 to 5 job. And it was a salary job. And frankly, it was a very good salary job because I've always been a great salesperson. So you always make the most money in sales. But let me be very clear, people, and then I'm going to come back to the story. We're all in sales. Whether you're the janitor at the high school around the corner, you're selling to your boss that this place is clean, don't fire me, or you're a CPA or an attorney or a doctor or a real estate agent. We're all in sales. I'm the best for the job. Use me. So you got to get over the negative energy around being a salesperson. So back to the story. So life went to crap, lost my job. And it was bad. It was bad. And what I had to do was step back and say, all right, how do I use the resources that I have? And I didn't ask the question at that time because this was 17 years ago. So I'm 41 now. That would have made me what, 23 years old, because I'll be 42 soon. So 23 years old. It wasn't really how I asked the question at the time, but I knew I had to fix the problem. And one of the things that I did while we were in NYU is we went to we had a lot of networking events. And what I saw happen at a lot of networking events is like friends that didn't work, they were able to find internships. They were able to find jobs. So these networking events and dinners, and they were building a community out of it and getting access. So I said to myself, all right, I was in real estate sales. I was on site at very large, billion-dollar sellout buildings, selling massive apartments at the time. And I said, all right, I have a network of real estate agents. I have a network of clients that I've sold to. I have resources in the industry. Why don't I put everybody around the table and we talk about the status of real estate? And at that point in time, didn't have any job, didn't really have a way to pay for it. So I ended up getting a sponsor, which was a title company, because they were hungry for deals and they had marketing budgets back then. They don't really today, but they did back then. And it started off as small dinners where there might have been 6 or 8 or 10 people around the table. And we talked about real estate. We talked about taxation. We talked about investing and what to do on the other side of the crisis that we were in. And out of that, I built a book of business of people who became clients. They became clients from a sales and purchasing standpoint. So listing agents stuff and buyer agent stuff, investors who were looking to invest in the market because they knew I had intimate knowledge about how to buy in these condominium buildings, and they wanted to buy in bulk and get a discount. So within a year, I went from like 0 to 7 figures of income because I started to build the room and engineer and architect the room. And sometimes I might have, if it was an 8-person dinner, I put 2 people around the table, but I had a co-host, and that co-host knew 6 good people that they were able to put around the table. So it wasn't just on me, and we were all getting value out of it. Building a network that way has catapulted my business. Again, this gets to, it's not about the funnel. It's not about the ads. It's not about AI. It's about the human intelligence, the human interaction that will help you catapult your business just like it did for me.
Dude, I absolutely love that. Jarrod, we always wrap up the show with a question because we believe that questions are the answer. What do you believe people need to be asking themselves or others to be successful in what you're discussing?
How do I add more value to the people who are in my network today?
That's a good one. That's solid. Jarrod, where can people find you?
You can hit me up on my email at hello@buyingfavor.co. Get me there. Can send you some resources if you want, because we're building out an operational program right now around buying favor for 7-figure plus entrepreneurs. And I'm always willing to be a resource. You can also find me at Jarrod, JARROD_guy, GUY at Instagram. Send me a DM. Always happy to get on the phone and talk and see if we can add some value to each other.
Awesome, Jarrod. Thank you so much. It's been a blast.
Pleasure, brother.